afternoon, and welcome to the Atlanta Music Project's The College Years Virtual Symposium for high school students thinking about studying music in college. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Akia Floyd, and I am the Development Manager for the Atlanta Music Project, and I'll be your moderator for this panel. So you want to be a music major. For those who are meeting us for the first time, the Atlanta Music Project was founded in 2010 with a mission to empower underserved youth to realize their possibilities through music. We serve 350 students here in Atlanta each year through our various after-school band, orchestra, and choir programs. We also run 2 youth orchestras, 2 youth choirs, provide private lessons, and run an annual summer music festival in school called the AMP Summer Series. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, the Atlanta Music Project has produced lots of online content, including masterclasses, panel discussions, and podcasts. The content is all free and open to the public, and we invite you to access it through our website, atlantamusicproject.org, or through our YouTube channel. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Chestnut Family Foundation for their support of our College Years Virtual Symposium, as well as all of our online content. This event is streaming live on our Atlanta Music on your Facebook timeline. And throughout this symposium, we will leave time for questions at the end, but if you have any questions at any time, please go ahead and put them in the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to address as many as we can. And it says my internet connection is not quite, so if I go in and out, I apologize. All right, so to get started, I'm gonna ask our panelists to introduce themselves so everyone can get to know them, and tell us where you work and who you'd like us to know. And since Daryl is unmuted, we'll start with Daryl.
Okay, hi, yeah, I'm Daryl Tukes, and I am Director of Music Industry Studies at Florida A&M University. Many of you know Florida A&M University as FAMU, the home of the marching band, the Marching 100, that has such a distinctive, distinguished history. The FAMU Marching Band then performed at the Rose Bowl, this parade, just in 2019. When people were still gathering and for parades and things like that. And the music program is a full-fledged program. We can't officially call ourselves a conservatory, but we do have conservatory level training. And he is a fully accredited academic school, an HBCU, which means Historically Black College or University. I am a graduate of the university, and I had spent recording and having a career as a recording and performing artist and producer, and working with all kinds of people from various genres, as diverse as Aretha Franklin, Sting, Diana Ross, James. This really goes on and on. Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, Ray Charles. Corn. It's hard to know if there's any kind of a circle that I have not been in. And it's been beautiful. And then I taught at New York University for a while doing, I taught music theory and voice. And yeah, so teaching is wonderful. It's the best passion of all. I love doing it. And so it's been a real, diverse and rich career and life experience. Most importantly, to be able to be in the lives of young people is always the most important thing to me, and to be doing it at university where I graduated many years ago, and to have a chance to helm this program is just a dream come true for me.
Thank you so much. I can tell. That was a great intro to Florida A&M University to anyone who has not experienced any of the programming at FAMU. So let's go on to Marshall at UGA. Can you give us an introduction of yourself and your work?
So my name is Marshall Williams. I'm the undergraduate admissions officer at the Hugh Hodson School of Music at the University of Georgia. We have about 600 students total, including undergrads all the way to graduate level students. We offer a lot of different programs in music study, from a Bachelor of Music with different concentrations like music education, music performance, music therapy, music theory, music composition. We also have a Bachelor of Arts in Music, which is more of a general music degree, kind of like a liberal arts music degree. We also have minor in music programs available, a new musical theater certificate. We just hired a full-time commercial music faculty member because there's such an interest in commercial music now that we want to make sure that we're staying a well-rounded music school. But I'm originally from Wilmington, North Carolina on the coast, and I got my undergraduate degree in music education from East Carolina University. I taught in a small town high school chorus in North Carolina before coming to UGA to get my Master of Music in choral conducting. I'm here working for admissions.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I can tell we're going to have some great valuable information from your end as well. So let's move on to Annalisa.
Hey everybody, my name is Annalisa Chiang. I'm the Director of Music Education at Clayton State University. We are in Morrow, Georgia, just south of the airport. And we have a long history of a partnership with AMP through our endowed scholarship, and several of our applied faculty members teach on the applied faculty at AMP as well. So I think I know a lot of the string players at AMP because I've adjudicated your end of year juries a couple times. I'm a violinist. I'm also from North Carolina. I did my undergrad and master's degree at University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and taught in North Carolina. I taught K-12 orchestra, chorus, and general music before moving down to Tallahassee and doing a PhD at Florida State. And so now I am here. I'm in Atlanta in the metro area and working at Clayton State. And at Clayton State, because we are a smaller regional university, we have 2 degrees in music. We have the Bachelor of Arts in Music, which is that liberal arts degree, and then the Bachelor of Music in Music Education. We also have a music minor and opportunity to double major as well.
Awesome. Yes, we thoroughly enjoy the partnership with Clayton State. We have some students this year who will be attending Clayton State, and it is definitely a great partnership for us as well. And speaking of preparatory school, Rebecca, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Bohers, and I am the Dean and Director at the New England Conservatory Preparatory School up in Boston, Massachusetts. I have a bachelor's degree in music performance, also from NEC, and a master's in music performance from Temple University. Been lucky enough to have had a career as a harpist, playing around the world, all the way down in Venezuela, all the way to Europe. Then my career took me into administration. I've worked managing a variety of youth orchestras, both in Philadelphia and in Boston. Had the chance to do some work with the Philadelphia Orchestra. I've done a ton of teaching artist work as well. That's been a huge passion of mine. And that has all driven me back to New England Conservatory, where I get to be the Dean and Director of the Preparatory School, which is a really great opportunity to combine both the artistic and the administrative sides. So looking forward to chatting with all the students today and seeing what your futures will hold.
Great. So before we move into lots and lots of information for our students about getting into college, what you can do to prepare, etc., I want everyone on the panel to think back. And for some of us, it's going to be further than others. So tell me one thing that surprised you during your admission process to college, whether you study music or not. Tell me one thing that surprised you. And Rebecca, we'll start with you.
I would say the thing that jumped out to me about the process was the weight of the audition, because I was on a performance track. So really the key importance of that part, when so many of my friends in high school were so focused on their resumes and grades and SATs, which are all definitely critical pieces. But on the performance track, the weight of how you prepare for the audition is so critical. And with that, though, was kind of the discovery of having found my people in the performance space, and suddenly being surrounded by everyone who had the really strong interest that I had in music.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Annalisa, I see you shaking your head. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it was just a little bit different because I was one of the North Carolina teaching fellows. So not only did I have to make sure that I was awarded the teaching fellow scholarship for the specific university where I wanted to go, but then I had to also do the audition and get into the specific music program. So it was making sure that my scholarship school matched the music school, so I didn't end up anywhere else. and so that was really important for us as well. So we were thinking about things from my friends who were also teaching fellows were doing, like, writing their essays and doing all that. And they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to X, Y, or Z school. I was like, well, I got assigned this one, but then they might put me here, but that's not the music program I want to go to. So making sure that everything kind of lined up where I needed it to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That, yeah, it can be quite complicated, more than we realize. Marshall, how about you?
What surprised me most is how every school just has slightly different requirements, and trying to keep track of that while looking into your options can be tricky. So it really tests your organizational skills, where some schools may require pre-screening reporting. A lot of state and public schools, if for like a school of music, for example, it's going to have a separate application process from the university. So making sure you're getting all the steps done correctly. Each school has slightly different audition requirements or repertoire requirements. So just kind of keeping track of what you need to be doing at the same time during your crazy senior year, and trying to survive that as well. So it's surprising how many steps are needed to pursue, especially music, because we have those extra steps with an extra application. But there's so many people that are there to help, like my position being admissions officer. Any questions about admissions, if you need any clarity at all, there's usually somebody at our institution that can help answer your questions specifically, and we're totally happy to help.
That's a very important tidbit there. I think coming from high school to college, you don't always understand that you can call somebody at the university who can help you figure out the process. So that's a really, really important piece of information to hang on to for a high school student, for sure. Daryl, what about you? You're muted.
I find that if you don't mute when you're not talking, it creates a lot of, and by the way, I've been trying to share the Facebook link, and so far it hasn't connected properly to the outside. I'm not sure if anyone else has had that problem.
Sorry, yeah, I had to
want to do that. Okay. So back to my admissions process. Yeah, it was a long time ago. So I graduated from high school in 1974. So that really explains a lot about who I am and what I bring to the discussion, not just as a teaching musician, but as a human being, what the world looked like then and how it looks now. And without getting to that too much, just getting into the surprise. The surprise was I had so many opportunities. Okay, so I had the opportunity to go to all kinds of colleges for various reasons. I had music scholarships offered to me, had academic scholarships. I even had a basketball scholarship. And I didn't know what to do with myself. We were not nearly as well put together as you guys are in terms of your planning, your strategies. We just weren't. It was a different time. You know, we looked a lot different, and we were very much like we looked, very free-spirited and just trying to find our way. So the surprising thing to me was that when I got a call from the head of the physics department at Florida A&M University saying, we've seen your math scores and we want to offer you a scholarship in physics. So the surprise to me was that when he said to me, when Dr. Jones said to me, I've been watching you and I know that you are a musician. And I said, well, I don't really think I'm the caliber of musician that's going to require to commit to what that training really is, to be competitive. And he says, well, you don't have to give up your music. You know, there is a direct relationship between exact sciences and music. And he says, you're going to find in physics, there are a lot of us who can play instruments a lot better than you think. A lot of us have classical training on violin, on piano, etc. And without, you know, letting anyone else steal my thunder here, we all know that Einstein was a really fine violinist and he played the piano every day. So when Dr. Jones convinced me of that, that was surprising. It wasn't surprising and I'm like, oh, wow, this is a chance of a lifetime. But what it was for me is I'm going to be able to get my education paid for and I'm not going to have to give up my music. And that's just the truth.
No, that's incredibly important because we just did a panel, AMP just did a panel with people who studied music, but went on to do different things in their life. I meet lawyers all the time who have bachelor's degrees in music and then went on to get their JD, you know, but it was a way for them to go to school, you know, and get a degree and still enjoy what they do. But then we also have people who study economics and other things and still play in the college orchestra and things like that. So I think that's a very, very important piece of information for our students as well, that there are other options out there, you know. So thank you for that, for sure. So speaking of that, not studying the performance track, Annalise and Marshall, you guys have said that you went the education track, and that is one of the options, music education. So I wanted to ask you both why you chose music education and how that experience differed for you compared to, let's say, the performance majors or even the commercial music majors or things like that. So Marshall.
Yeah, so I chose music education because I did have interest in teaching public school in North Carolina. I think what's unique about a music degree is that you're taking a lot of the same classes the first 2 years, aside from some methods courses to practice like string methods or woodwind methods to make sure that you're comfortable in all areas of music, K through 12. I had a lot of colleagues, of course, in the performance area, and even as a music education student, you're offered a lot of performance opportunities as much as you're willing to take on. So I could be involved with the opera theater program. Of course, I could be involved with the many choral ensembles. I didn't have as much of a heavy load in terms of solo vocal literature and like voice diction classes and voice pedagogy classes. Still, those are open to music education students if you're willing to take those courses. But I saw music education as a way for me to go into teaching, of course, and my path beyond my undergraduate experience was going to be choral conducting. So it was really appropriate for me to do music education and get some conducting and teaching experience in order to pursue my plans to get a Master of Music in choral conducting. It is interesting how the first 2 years you have a lot of the same classes as other majors, music theory, oral skills, class piano, and then eventually junior, senior year specifically, you're taking a lot more concentration classes like music education methods classes, voice pedagogy, music therapy, practicums. It really becomes more specific there. But a lot of students also decide to change their program once they're already in the School of Music. We definitely recommend being in as early as possible, just because the music degree program begins the first semester and we don't want you all to fall behind, but there is freedom to change once you're already here. So you shouldn't feel stuck if you get admitted for music education and say, no, I really want to perform and I want to go to grad school and get a performance degree. You're not set in stone by auditioning into music education. There's definitely some freedom to move around a little bit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I hear you. Annalisa, Yeah, if you could talk about that next. But yeah, conducting is something that a lot of kids in high school have no idea how to get to the conducting track, and most places will not have a conducting degree, right?
Right.
So it's valuable for them to understand that music education is one of the ways you can become a conductor as well. So Annalisa, yeah, you have a DMA, so how has your experience been?
Yeah, so mine has been a little bit different. I went into music education originally, similarly to what Daryl was saying. That was a way for me to pay for my undergrad. I talked about teaching fellows earlier. In North Carolina, had a program when I was coming through school. If you agreed to teach in North Carolina for 4 years after you graduated, they would pay for your undergraduate degree in education. And so that was a way for me to go to school, have it paid for, have a job afterwards, and still be able to make music. And so when all of those things were offered to me, I was like, why wouldn't I want to do this? And so I kind of went into my undergrad knowing at the end of these 4 years, I will be a public school teacher, and ended up staying there for 5 years and doing my master's degree while I was still teaching up in North Carolina. And then the opportunity to pursue my PhD happened, and I was still teaching in the public schools in Tallahassee while I was doing some of my graduate work. So I haven't been that far removed from music education. I think the biggest difference in picking your degree track, and a lot of what I think Marshall and I are going to say are very similar, because at the University System of Georgia schools, there is a core curriculum that is standard for all USG schools, that area A through F curriculum. So no matter what USG school you go to, you're going to have to take 2 English classes, 2 math classes, a laboratory science, for no matter what degree you pursue. And the change really starts to happen in the area F classes, where if you are a Bachelor of Arts student or you're a performance major, you're going to be taking different electives than the music education majors who are going to be taking those methods classes. And we have a year-long internship process for certification in Georgia. So you have to do a fall internship and a spring student teaching. And so obviously while you're student teaching, you're not taking classes on campus. And so that's where the differences start to happen. And so if you are a undergrad in a performance degree, sometimes depending on where you decide you might want to go to grad school, it's hard to do a graduate degree in education, whereas a lot of people will choose to do an undergrad in music education just to have a licensure, so that they have some kind of something to fall back on and that experience, and then pursue, if they want to pursue more advanced applied studies, go on to grad school and do a performance or a conducting master's degree.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and I misspoke. PhD, sorry. Yeah, exactly. I think as a high school student, a young student, the differences between going to a university in various states is unclear. The requirements. So like even in Florida, studying music education at Florida State University, there are required non-music classes that happen through the whole university system in Florida, whereas the conservatory track is different from either one of those. So Rebecca, I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up the slides you gave me so you can talk a little bit more about how the conservatory track differs, and give us a little bit more insight into that as well. Well, let me look. Rebecca, you are muted. There we go.
I'm on mute.
There
So the conservatory track, so it's really focused in the performance spaces. I would say though, even the core curriculums are kind of built around the performance pieces. And so you're going to see that through the application process, as well, that critical kind of piece around the performance track. But I would say, just to echo some of what Marshall was saying as well, I mean, it's so important, no matter what path you go down, to make sure that you explore all the opportunities available to you at the institutions, and to really kind of push your boundaries to explore new spaces. I know for myself, it was actually my on-campus job that sparked this career in music administration. So you just kind of never know where those opportunities are going to lie. And that can be one of the really beautiful things about your undergraduate degree, wherever you are, just to remember that regardless of your profession, your career is going to take many, many different paths. So if you want to go to the next slide, I can kind of talk about some of the pieces that are involved in the college application process for conservatories, and what you might want to be thinking of. And some of this, my colleagues on the panel have already shared that the most critical piece here is to get organized and to make so many lists. And there are so many different intricacies of the application process, and every school really is different. Even among the conservatories, you want to make sure that you're looking at the different options available to you. So my recommendations to our prep students is always to start by making a list of the schools that you think you're interested in, and then to ask everybody around you what schools they might recommend, because you never know what schools you've never even heard of or considered that might be good fits for you. So you'll come up with quite a large list that way, hopefully, and then you can really start to do your research, to go online, to look at these institutions, to explore their curriculums, but to always remember to look beyond the curriculum. What kind of school clubs do they have? What kind of community partnerships do they have? There was just a wonderful example of, are there scholarships that involve other teaching that'll pay for your education? So do your research online and narrow down your list. I think there's a lot of pressure from college advisors these days to apply to 15 or 20 schools. And personally, I think particularly if you're thinking the performance route, I think that's too many. And especially if you're going to get down to the area where you start taking auditions, you want to think about the number of auditions you're going to be able to take in a 6 to 8 week period, because that's when they're all going to be happening. So then narrow down your list. And when it comes time to that piece, I remember I mentioned in the beginning the importance of the audition. I also like to really encourage students to practice everything about the audition, and that goes so far beyond just practicing the music. Auditioning itself is a skill. I think of applying to college as it's a game, and so learning the rules of the game and the shortcuts of the game is really important. So when you practice your audition, what clothes are you going to wear? Do you feel like your body has the freedom to move and really play its instrument? If you have a tight shirt that or a button-down shirt that you've never worn before, and you're playing at the cello and you suddenly realize you can't move your arms in the audition, that's not something you want to discover. So make sure that you are really comfortable in every part of it. And I mentioned practicing the audition. I think it's really critical to make sure that when you do practice the audition, you're doing it in front of other people, and you ask them not to just sit quietly, because occasionally someone on the panel will open a bag of chips and they'll eat. I mean, I hope they don't do that during your audition, but it's been known to happen. And so, ask your families and relatives that you're practicing with to create a distraction, or to have a siren that drives by outside, so that you've practiced that space. I think that's really important. And the third piece that I think is really, really critical, and Marshall touched on this as well, he's really got the admissions track down there, is to remember to ask for help. And to think about what your network is. So, AMP students have a network of people around them at AMP that you should tap into that. And you should tap into your private teachers, the connections that they can make for you at various campuses, as well as to remember that when you're applying to these schools, the schools want you to come. So they want to make everything possible to give you the information to help you through that application part. They have a whole team of people literally dedicated to helping you through the admissions process. So make sure to use that. And I mentioned asking your private teachers for help, and one of the places where they're so critical to help is that about the trial lessons? I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, so I'll save that for going on. But RC, you're shaking your head. Should I mention it? The trial lesson. I like to think about sort of a sports analogy here, which is that, if you were being recruited for a sports team at a college, you'd have a coach that you'd have met with, or that would have come and watched you play, and that would have a whole separate set of background. So in the audition, you've got 10 minutes to show them what you can do. But in a trial lesson, you have a chance to meet the teacher that could be the most impactful person in your college career for an hour or a half hour. And so that is time that you wouldn't get any other way. But more importantly, you have a chance to see whether or not you feel that teacher is the right fit for you, because every teacher is different and every student is different. So finding that right match is so critical. And for me, in my process, when I was applying to conservatories, that was one of the biggest factors that I considered about which school I wanted to go to on the performance track, was to find the right teacher match. And so the schools I chose were not necessarily schools that were chosen for their programs, but were chosen for their private teachers. So if you are considering the performance track, that is probably one of the single most important factors that's going to get there, because that's the setup for your next network. So your current network is your AMP network and everyone that they're introducing you to through, for example, these wonderful discussions. But your next network is based around the people that you're going to surround yourself with on college, and they're going to set you up for your career. And to this day, the opportunities that come into my life and the opportunities with people that I collaborate with come from the network that I built during that collegiate time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. No, I hear you. I also went and auditioned, and I ended up choosing based on the teacher, not so much about anything else, but compatibility with the teacher, matters more to me. These are coming up one at a time.
Oh yeah. So this final slide, and you can just click through it. These are just some things about NEC at a glance, the New England Conservatory. But you might look at them as kind of pieces that you might want to ask questions about when you're exploring other schools. So, what does their campus look like? Is it urban? Is it rural? What does the student body look like? I mean, at NEC, the student body is 40% international. So the choice to surround yourself with the whole world there is a really big one. What are the areas of focus that you can do on your campus? At a place like NEC, performance, having classical jazz and our third stream contemporary improvisation, but on a college campus, teaching artists opportunities, music education. I will say we have a huge community partnership program that's a big part. So look at every aspect of the curriculum and think about what the goals of that institution are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Daryl, we're going to move on to you next. Daryl, I really want to talk to you because I think your track is very, very important as well. We have such a performance-focused program, obviously, but at the same time, we have students who their goal is not to study music, as their major track in college. They still want to be involved in music, though. So I was hoping you could talk to us about how you stayed in touch with music and ended up, with such a prolific career, though you studied physics.
Yes, so I want to just build on what Rebecca said, because what you said, Rebecca, is, as far as I can tell from my experiences, not just at Florida A&M University, but also at New York University, at Fairfield College in Connecticut, and at SUNY Purchase, State University of New York, the Purchase Conservatory. So everything that I've said to my students for those years, you really put it in perfectly. But I don't want to let it stop just there, because I'm also like Akia Floyd, her mother and father. My wife and I have 4 adult children as well, and we raised our family living in New York City and in Connecticut. And our 4 children, because of my career, my wife's career, our our children all elected, they had the opportunity. They were quite fortunate to go to boarding schools in New England. My sons went to the same school that John F. Kennedy went to, so they really grew up in a rich environment in terms of the culture and academic stimulation and the history, the tradition. But when they were making those choices of what schools to go to, not only on that level, but also when they went to college, and two kids went to the Ivy League, but all of the decisions that they made were based on where's the right fit for me. And sometimes it was as straightforward as meeting someone who understood their particular passion and there was a personality that worked. I'll give you one quick example. My younger daughter, when she was looking at Bard, she decided not to go to Bard. And she wound up going to New York University, surprisingly to me, because she wanted to go into independent study. And she came up with her own degree that to this very day, I don't quite understand it, but it's something like music. Her degree title is something like Music and Meaning. And this is something that Gallatin at NYU was able to provide for her. And interestingly, at Bard, the longtime president there is also a full-time conductor. So go figure. It's just quite interesting, right? Mm-hmm. So, so I wanted to just jump on what you said, Rebecca, because the idea of where things fit is so important. And you really quantified it. And you took my heart in your hand when you talked using so many sports metaphors, because I use sports metaphors to try to help artistic people like ourselves understand we can do over the course of an hour, maybe what an athlete gets a minute to do. And we can also do over the course of a long career what the most elite athletes in the world get to do for a few years at maximum, unless you're just, the one in a lifetime person you see who gets to be a quarterback or something like that. But the main great athletes, people who are the great gymnasts, the swimmers, tennis players, they have a peak. Our careers, we can see the long path of it. So I'm really fortunate to be able to get into the world of education with all of you and to bring my experiences. So back to your basic question is, how did I find the mix of my opportunity to study physics and how it might have empowered me as I moved on, right? So first of all, whatever you study in college is going to help you to learn how to learn. And that's a big argument that I have with certain people who say, well, we do too much of that in the United States. We don't do enough really training people to do a particular kind of job. The idea of learning to learn. But I think there's great value in it. I think that studying physics opened me up to being able to take an idea into its smallest possible components and also look at it, the relationship between the particle and the wave. And the same thing in how I think about any issue on the smallest level and also on its largest level. So I see you have some information up there about me. Yeah, I've played for all these kind of people and done all these kind of things. So I don't like talking about myself that way. It gives me kind of a weird feeling, but it's true. That's my career. I do that kind of stuff all the time. I'm working on big projects and I get a chance to curate projects for my students as well to get them involved. Akia, can you narrow me down to exactly what the best thing you think you might be able to get out of how I can give you what you're looking for with this?
Yeah. So basically your advice to students who are searching for programs, but they're concerned about not having the ability to still have access to music, even though they don't want to major in music.
Yeah, so in my case, I never allowed myself to think about not being fully immersed in music. When I was in college, not only did I take piano classes and voice lessons, the whole concept of electronics and music was brand new when I was in college. I studied that. Today, in my program at Florida A&M University, we have, you take classes in accounting, you take classes in economics, because my concentration that I'm responsible for has to do with students who want to be in the music industry, whatever that means. And there's so many different types of jobs in the music industry. So we have a curriculum that is based to not only give you musical training with the same requirements in theory that a performance major would have. You take four terms of music theory. You have to declare an instrument, obviously, class piano and all of that. We also have music industry classes. So I see that today's world is much more welcoming to students with these kinds of eclectic desires. A music industry program like what we have is a good fit for students who want to be in music and not sure that they want to be the person up front performing or whatever. There are several programs like that that I've seen, but that's what we're doing at Florida A&M. It's working really well. It's a lightning rod for students who want to go into the music industry, in fact. So yeah, am I getting to the questions?
No, that is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And then Annalisa, I wanted to move to you because AMP has a special partnership with Clayton State in which we have students who are able to get basically a scholarship through AMP to Clayton State University. So I wanted to talk to you specifically about, going that tract of that. We talked a little about it, the college and university as opposed to the conservatory. So could you give us a little rundown for preparing for college auditions and, from your perspective?
Yeah, a lot of what Rebecca touched on earlier, I would say holds true for any program. So when you're thinking about where you want to do your undergraduate studies, there are a lot of things that you have to consider other than, I want to study this field. So, what do you want to do with your degree? You might want to do a BA in music and then go to med school, go to law school. I've got friends that did both of those things. And music was the way that they paid for their education. So that's what they did. What kind of college experience do you want to have? Do you want to go to a small school or a large school or a conservatory? By their nature, conservatories are going to be smaller than a school like UGA, which is a large state institution with an NCAA football and basketball team, right? Does being a part of a fraternity or sorority it sound like something that you want to do when you go to college? For a lot of students, that's a part of undergrad that they really want to participate in. So does the school that you're going to offer that sort of thing? Where I went to undergrad, we didn't have football. So that was a thing, and so a lot of band students decide they don't want to go to UNC Greensboro because there's no marching band. And so they picked another school to go to so they could march in undergrad. And what kind of financial aid can you receive? So we do have a scholarship program for graduating AMP students. And, I'm sure that you all have talked about that on your end, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that if you want to send me a message. But if you qualify for the Pell Grant and you qualify for Hope Scholarship and you've completed studies at AMP and you have a successful audition, then we make up the difference in tuition so that you can come to Clayton State essentially with your undergraduate degree paid for. Yeah, and so we're really happy that we have that in place and are able to work with you all in that capacity. When you're thinking about your audition, I think Rebecca talked about this as well, and so did Marshall. Find out what the specific requirements are for that school. Some schools might say prepare 2 pieces, and those might be what you're working on with your applied teacher. But then another school will say, well, pick these pieces, but one has to be from this era, one has to be in this style, one has to be one of these major concerto. So make sure that you've looked up the requirements for that specific school. Make sure that you know any important dates. So if the university has a overall college application deadline, make sure that you've gotten your university application in. And then also if there is a deadline to audition to be able to be considered for music scholarship, that's different at every school. Is there a pre-screening? So do you need to send in a recording ahead of time? Have you visited the campus? So we talk about how people decide that they're going to send out 50 applications, which y'all don't do that. You don't need to do that. That's also really expensive because a lot of times it costs money to apply to a school, and then it might also cost money to apply for that music school. So just, is there a fee attached with that application? And if there is, that's a lot of money. So you might be able to eliminate a school if you go on a college tour or you talk to somebody and get materials sent to you and you're thumbing through. And so you go to the campus and you're like, oh, well, they don't have football here, I'm not auditioning at that. So something like that. Go to the campus. If you've been admitted to the university, or if you haven't been admitted to the university, that's also important to know as well. So we'll have people do their music audition, and then we might need to contact admissions and say, hey, can we put this person in the bridge program so that they can take some prerequisite classes in the summer before coming in the fall? If maybe an SAT or ACT score wasn't high enough. Is that an option? I know that's an option at Florida State as well, and it's an option at several of the USG schools, depending on class size and other requirements. But university requirements, does the music school might have requirements, but are you also able to be admitted to the whole school and not just the music school? Have you taken a lesson with that teacher? I know from personal experience, I was able to eliminate some schools because I took an applied lesson, like a trial lesson with the teacher, and I was like, I don't know if this teaching style is going to work for me for the next 4 years, because you're spending an hour a week with that person, and for potentially up to 4 years, that's a long time to not know if you can, because everybody teaches differently, right? So there are a lot of things to consider before you start working on the actual material that you're going to play and present at your audition.
Yes, completely identify with that. And Marshall, at this point, could you really see life at a school without a marching band?
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Our marching band is about 450 members.
Right.
It's just such an experience, and it's not required for music majors to be in the Red Coat Marching Band, but a lot of them really enjoy it. But it's about 70% non-music majors. So I know Daryl touched on a little bit about being involved with music, not as like a music major, but we have so many opportunities like ensembles, a whole list of classes that students outside of the music program can take for their university requirements. So we really want everyone to kind of be involved. And of course, marching band is a huge way that students can continue to be involved with music. But yeah, these are just a few slides about the overview of the admissions process. And for some reason, their freshman year, doesn't exist. Essentially, in the beginning, you're just wanting to build your music resume. It's amazing when you get to your senior year and you're like, what actually did I do musically the past few years? So start keeping track and building a music resume. Any awards you've received or honors like all-state ensembles, your music teachers and anyone private you've taken from, any involvement in like a church choir or a community choir or a community band. Start keeping track of these so you'll have something to show a music school when you do apply. A lot of them do require a music resume. I know that UGA does. And it's just something for the faculty to look at to see your background in music. Of course, it's going to be your performance at the audition, which determines your admission into our music program. But this is good for them to get an idea about what your experience has been like so far. I do want to highlight about visiting music schools. Our faculty love to connect with prospective students through sample lessons, and this definitely is like the best way to see if a student will be a good fit, or if the teacher will be a good fit for the student, and vice versa. You really want to have a good relationship because you're going to be working with the applied teacher every semester during your degree program. We have a system, well, we had a system before COVID-19 where we would invite prospective students to come to campus for a full day of activities where they will have a sample lesson with one of the applied faculty members. They'll observe some ensemble rehearsals. They'll shadow a student in a music class, like music theory or oral skills. We invite them to lunch with some of our current students. I think a lot of prospective students really like hearing feedback from current music majors. They can get very honest and transparent information from them. So typically we see a lot of junior high school students coming in for visits, and this is a good time to really get your foot in the door. And by the time you audition, there's definitely an extra level of comfort because you know who's listening to you. You've met the person who you're auditioning for. And hopefully that relieves some performance anxiety, but even having a relationship pre-existing to your audition goes a long way into getting your foot in the door in any music institution. I think the next slide is just an overview about the steps for applying to UGA's music school specifically. It might look similar elsewhere. It highlights our music programs. We have all information listed about our music programs on the website. Definitely checking audition requirements. I know that has been said a few times, and how each place can have varying different requirements, and just making sure that they're clear before you audition. And applying to the institution, University of Georgia in our case, and then the separate independent School of Music application.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Marshall. That right there, the breakdown, I think our students will find quite useful as well. So thank you. I wanted to go ahead and move on to any questions we may have, because we are, we're hitting time very quickly. So let me look and make sure I'm seeing the questions. Okay, so we have Kendra asking, she has 4 or 12, 13, 14. And the schools have nothing in middle school. How can she get them in on this so they will have different outlets in Georgia? I'm not sure what you're asking.
Kendra, are you still there? If you are, will you type in, where in Georgia are you located?
Yeah.
Because in the metro Atlanta area, there are several programs. AMP is one of them. The music preparatory school at Clayton State offers lessons. We also have the Clayton County Youth Orchestra, and the Clayton State Community Band. So and then I think in Henry County, which is south of us, they have Henry for Music. There are a lot of community programs. So if maybe your specific school doesn't have band, orchestra, chorus, I think there are some community music outlets that you might be able to explore if music is something that they're wanting to pursue.
Absolutely.
And I could touch on
and I might just add that I don't think it's ever too soon to start exploring, both music as a path for a career, but I also think just the critical skills that being in a music program can give you far beyond just a music career. The team building, the creative listening, the planning, the imaginative parts. Daryl mentioned Einstein being a violinist. I think this is something that enriches every person's life. So accessing whatever community music programming is available to you is such a critical advantage that you can certainly give your children.
Okay. And I wanted to mention, Kendra, you can contact AMP specifically if you want to know more about our program, if you're in the area, at info@atlantamusicproject.org. I know Marshall had something to say as well.
Yeah, I was just saying, especially during this time in the virtual world we live in, it's a great time to start experimenting with different teachers. And so many independent music teachers are offering virtual lessons in place of in-person lessons right now. So it's a great time to kind of get a feel for different teachers. And if this is something you're interested in, start working with somebody. Eventually, maybe that could transition to in-person instruction, but this is a good time to explore your options in terms of private lessons. And they're all adjusting super well to the whole virtual world. So it's definitely possible to get great instruction through a Zoom lesson. So if you're interested in private study, I know it's not an ensemble experience, but it's definitely a great step you can take right now in terms of getting some musical instruction under your belt.
Daryl, I think you had something.
I just wanted to say, Marshall, thank you for bringing that up. It's exactly what I wanted to do. You know, we can't ignore the crisis that we're all in, but it really is a unique opportunity for these kinds of collaborations, intergenerationally, you know, geographically. And I wanted to mention, for instance, behind me, the virtual background I have about Birdland. At Florida A&M University, we have a great jazz music program as well. So we have symphonic music, we have jazz, and this was the last concert we got to do before COVID-19 said you got to leave campus. So I keep it there as to remind me of the fact that we were working together in ensemble. But now, what is this unique opportunity now? If you are interested in any type of genre, if you're interested in jazz, for instance, if you're interested in popular music, this format we're working in has forced me as a music producer to find new ways to get better audio quality to do remote mixing. So for instance, I'm working on a project right now and using software that has just been developed at lightning speed to try to enhance what we're able to do, not just with video, because as much as I depend on Zoom for video, it's not a good format to be able to have the highest level audio. So I'm doing all kinds of things, even working with software designers. So here you have people who are musically inclined, musical backgrounds, and now they're using their skills entrepreneurially to find their path as we globally are having to deal with the fact that we can't work the way we've been used to working. So Marshall, thank you for bringing that up. I had sent a note to kids and I wanted to speak, and you just brought me right into it, typically the way musicians always do. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Daryl. I wanted to hit Kay Smith's question, specifically Marshall and Rebecca, you might have an answer, but do you guys know about opportunities for international students, whether there are financial opportunities specifically concerning music schools for international students?
Marshall, you want to go ahead first?
You go ahead. Is this the question that's posted in the chat?
Sure.
No,
I can talk for. I can talk a little bit. I mean, as I mentioned, NEC is 40% international, and of course there are additional challenges to the international student right now, particularly with the pandemic and with so many of the embassies closed. What I would encourage you is, again, to remember that the admissions team of each institution wants you there. And so to work with them individually, most schools and universities have a dedicated person also to working specifically with international students to help them through the process, whether or not it's with a student visa or any part of that. So that's really important. They also have dedicated teams that are, of their financial aid. And that's one process we didn't really touch on here, but once you're admitted into the school, then things have really flipped, because now the school really wants you there, and you have all of the power which is that you should go back to that financial team and work with them on all of the options that are available to get you at that school. Because if you have reached a point where you have passed the audition and been accepted to a conservatory or a college, the financial team is going to want to do everything they can to help you. And they are the experts in that part of the field and will help you search scholarships and grants, and they've helped other students. So they have lots of resources available.
I think the only thing I would add to that is that I think everywhere has someone who's dedicated to being an international student specialist. So there is a international admissions officer with UGA undergraduate admissions who is super helpful in answering any questions that they have and facing the complications of being an international applicant. But also we do offer the opportunity to submit distance recorded auditions. Right now, that's all we're taking. But for students who live a great distance away, they're able to audition, whether it's like a Zoom, Skype audition, or if they just submit their materials online, and they can be evaluated for admission into the School of Music using that method, so they don't have to worry about the finances of traveling abroad just for the audition.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very valuable. Thank you. I'm going to try to hold us for like 10 more minutes, if that's okay. But this is for anyone. What grade do you recommend getting started in looking for a college or university program? Zella said she's starting the 9th grade next year. For some reason, I didn't hear any of that.
Annalisa, you are muted.
There we go. You're not muted. I just can't hear you.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. It's saying that I have an unstable internet connection. It's never too early to start looking. Don't think that you have to plan your whole life out as a freshman just yet. You might change your mind several times. You might get to college and change your mind again, and that's okay. But start making a list of places that you want to visit. Start making a list of places that you might think about auditioning, and just looking at what the requirements are. And then by the time your junior year or senior year comes around, you'll have a pretty good idea of where you might want to go.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I wanted to say, because, for instance, with the music industry program, some students are coming in who want to be impresarios, some want to be artists, all of them want to be producers, some want to be managers. But the earlier they start the process of auditioning, the better. The sooner they get on our radar, the better. We have high school students, because Florida A&M University has long been a place where athletes and musicians from the Black college experience are fed. Now, that's not the case anymore. We have to compete with everyone, and of course, we are also bringing people from all kinds of communities. And I want to point out, the earlier the better. I have calls now from students, from parents, families, and many of them are grappling with this question of what should they major in and what are the requirements, responsibilities. This is a unique opportunity while we're in this exceptional time of lockout or shutdown or whatever it is, isolation, where we can actually get in touch with each other in a more rapid way than it might be. How can I get in your schedule? How can I get an appointment with you? Well, now you can find an hour to get on with somebody this way that otherwise might be difficult. So I think the straight answer to your question is just what Annalisa said. 9th and 10th grade is process. Reach out to the various applied faculty members who you might think you can bond with, people who direct programs, and that's how we do it at Florida A&M University. And we go on a road show and hard to do right now with the, yeah, thank you for leading me with that answer, Annalisa. That's exactly what I wanted to say.
Thank you. I'm going to combine two questions. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I'm going to combine Julian's question, and they're asking, do your universities have the opportunity to double major or have a side major, or minor? And if they do, can you tell us a bit about some of them that you know about?
Well, at UGA, I think the Bachelor of Arts in Music is perfect for students who want to double major. I mentioned earlier, it's more like a liberal arts degree. You're still taking a heavy music curriculum the first 2 years, and then you're taking 2 to 3 music courses each semester, junior, senior year. More freedom to take courses in another degree program. A lot of other programs don't start their major requirements till junior, senior year. So it kind of lines up perfectly how Bachelor of Arts requirements, you're getting the bulk of it done the first 2 years, and then you can focus more on the other degree program without having to add additional time to your time at the university. We have students who do a double major with the Bachelor of Arts in Music and English and Sciences, doing all sorts of different degree areas in addition to their music degree. So it's definitely a great option for students who want a degree in music and a degree in another field. We still have students who do the Bachelor of Music, whether it's music performance, education, those stay really music to a double major with that option. And it's definitely possible. It just might add time to your study at the institution.
That's similar to
Yeah,
Florida, same kind of thing where it's being a state school, we have major, you can do a minor. I've got students who by the time they finished their music industry degree, they were able to go right into MBA programs if they wanted to, and they studied enough business classes along the way. Yeah, so that's not a problem. And the music industry minor, or when you minor in the music, you just have you don't have to take quite as many of the classes in terms of the audio production classes, but you do still have to take the theory classes.
Yeah, one thing we didn't totally share is that there are these options potentially for double degrees, and there are also conservatories and colleges that have partnered for double degrees. For example, NEC has a dual degree program both with Tufts University as well as with Harvard universities. And these double degree programs are often a little bit longer, usually 5 or 6 years as opposed to 4 years in order to complete. So you can always check those out as an option. And I always like to caution students actually about the double degree program because, it's the right fit for some students. But I think you want to be careful too about how you're spreading your time and to make sure that you're leaving time to be able to explore all the options that are going to be available for you on the campus. So I really love the idea of having a concentration that's added to your major, or perhaps a minor in major, which a lot of institutions offer as well. There's always going to be time to go get your master's, in another topic as well. And I think that's another really important thing to remember for parents as well, for students who are applying for music programs, is getting a bachelor's of music or a bachelor's of arts. It's a bachelor's, which means that you can still go so many places afterwards with your bachelor's. I mean, the bachelor's 4 years ends with a commencement, and the commencement that's a start, right? The word means to start. So that's really just the start of your career. And there are students who are at NEC, and I'm sure in all of our programs, who have music majors who go on to law degrees or medical degrees. And remember that it is just a beginning. And I think sometimes there can be a little bit of fear for parents. Oh, my kid wants to go be a music major. What are they going to do afterwards? But it is just the beginning of so many different paths.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Annalisa, shaking your head.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, and at most of the schools, you're going to be able to. I have an unstable internet connection again, so let's see if we can get this up. At most schools, you're going to be able to combine different things, but don't think about having to take on too much. Otherwise, you might not finish in a 4 or 5 year frame.
Daryl, were you saying something?
I was just going to say it directly to Rebecca in the chat, but I'll say it to everyone. I think implicit in what Rebecca is saying is you have to ask yourself, why are you asking questions about double majoring in the first place? Is it because you have such mad passion for this and for that and you can't work it out? Or are you being influenced by family pressures or encouragement? The first thing I do when I meet with families and kids, or if I don't meet with them together, is I say, do you have your family's support to be in the arts? It doesn't mean that that's going to be the deciding factor, but often these people who are struggling with double major questions, I've lived it, you guys, a long time. This as a parent, as an individual myself, as a teacher now, as an administrator, a lot of these struggles are coming from external forces. If it's because you just love 2 things so much or 3 things, you can't make up your mind at this young age, you're absolutely right. This is a commencement when you finish this program. It's not the end, it's the beginning of something else. But ask yourself, why am I struggling with this kind of a question? Do I really want to take on this responsibility, this much work, this much expense, perhaps this much financial debt? What is really driving me? And I think that'll help you make a decision. And I think if you make a decision honestly like that, I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah, no, that's very valuable. I think that is exactly what Rebecca, partially what she was getting at, It is a very demanding undertaking to try to take on 2 majors. Someone asked about a social life. You probably won't have much of one if you intend to do more than 1 major and do it well. You probably won't have much of a social life. So I would love to go on and on. There are so many questions, but I cannot. And we do have more sessions that will probably answer some of your questions. This is a 2-day symposium. So if you stay tuned at 3 p.m., we have an audition prep masterclass. So stay tuned for sure. Tomorrow, there are also more classes about interviewing, more masterclasses. So stay tuned. I really want to thank all of you for joining us on this panel. You gave us such valuable information today, each and every one of you. And we really, really appreciate you all. If you have any questions, anyone, email me at info@atlantamusicproject.org. And if I can direct your question to one of them, I certainly will. If not, and I can answer it, I will as well. But I just want to thank you all.